what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome back to a very special edition of the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network. Got a very special guest for you, aside from our great co-host Skinny T here to my left. Down below, we have one of the best in the business. I think maybe the best in the business. Been doing it for quite some time now. Has been a founder before. Now he's the lead NFL draft analyst for Pro Football Focus and the co-host of the NFL Stock Exchange. Mr. Trevor Sikkema, man, thank you for the time. We certainly appreciate it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate the kind words in the intro. That means a lot. Appreciate the thought that was into that, man. I've been doing this a long time, but doing stuff like this is a lot of fun for me. So I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Excited to talk a little Rams football with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We officially, as we were talking off air, officially met at the Super Bowl, but now this is like your Super Bowl, the draft coming up in a month. Get into it. Real quick, before we even jump in, are you in the Tampa area still?
No, so I'm actually in Charlotte, North Carolina now. So
Okay.
I've gone up north to what Buccaneers fans call a division rival territory. So they make sure that I don't forget the fact that I'm no longer in the Tampa area anymore.
Yeah. Well, you're in NASCAR country now, and
That is true.
yeah, all that. Because I think Tampa is still the nicest airport I've ever been in. I love the Tampa airport.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Tampa International Airport does not get enough credit for efficiency, speed, cleanliness, places to eat. Oh, thank you. You get me fired up now. Just as the first topic that we're talking about. My passion for the Tampa International Airport runs deep. So I appreciate you giving a shout out here at the start of the show.
Dude, it's incredible. I was there like a year ago visiting my buddy who lives in Bradenton, just south of Tampa, and flew into Tampa. And I was like, this is literally the nicest airport I've ever been in. International. Maybe it compares I've been in Reykjavik, Iceland was beautiful too, but that's, a whole different conversation. But anyway, getting in the draft stuff, I wanted to ask you first, Trevor, off the bat, because the Rams, ironically, first time since 2016 with the first round pick. And, their strategy is very different from the rest of the league. No first round pick. We have the mantra out here, F them picks, which typically is just the early picks because, nationally everyone is like, oh, the Rams never have picks. In reality, they had 14 picks last year, 11 picks the year before. They have a lot of picks, just never the early round ones.
Right.
I'm just curious your perception and analysis just kind of the Rams strategy, just kind of your thoughts on their differing approach to the draft and what kind of the rest of the league does.
Yeah, obviously I hated it. They're trying to put me out of business. Their strategy, if everybody implemented it, then I wouldn't have a job. No, obviously I think that I think what's most important about how you operate a draft strategy and a front office overall is that the head coach and the general manager just have to have a lot of continuity. And the longer that I've covered teams or this league as a whole, the more I realize that's not always the case the way that it probably should be, right? Sometimes, they're the general manager and the head coach are maybe on different timelines of their contract of when they were hired. And it's like, okay, well, the head coach wasn't really hired by the GM or the GM wasn't really there when the head coach was there. Sometimes you get the owners meddling in the picks and things like that. And they just can cause all sorts of chaos. And because of that, I think you always want to have more darts to throw at the dartboard, if you will. And the ones that are in the first round, well, they're the bigger needles. They'll be the closest to the bullseye when you're throwing it. And so when you don't have those, it sort of makes it tough. But for Los Angeles, and the reason why I bring up that background, for Los Angeles specifically, very clearly, great continuity and chemistry between Sean McVay and Les Snead. Like these guys obviously work very well together. They are step for step in what they want to do with the team, how they see the team, where they are in a winning window, what's going to help them the most. And I think that matters even more than necessarily the first round picks, as sacrilegious as it might be to say for a person who has my job title. But for the Rams, it's wild that they have not had first round picks, basically, what did you say, since 2016? I mean, that's just an insane stat. But they have a Super Bowl, right? I mean, they built a roster with some of the most talented players in the NFL. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. They've been able to bring in top-tier talent. And I think what they have done is they have recognized when they have a legitimate shot to compete. And I think that right now they're sort of in this situation where yeah, okay, there's not necessarily that player that we would want to trade a first round pick for. There were rumors of, Brian Burns going for 2 first round picks and things like that. But with that falling through and with Los Angeles kind of being where they're at right now, I think it makes sense for them to obviously say, okay, like, let's keep the first round pick. Let's see what we can do in the first round here. Let's rebuild the team a little more. And especially with Jalen Ramsey no longer there, especially with Aaron Donald retiring, I just think that they have such a great and realistic view of where they are. And even though it's been not always up, progress is, they say, not linear. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. They've had a pretty good idea of how open the window is for them to make a Super Bowl, what they've needed to do, because it's those teams that you see trade first round picks for players that you go, okay, sure, good player. Did it really matter for you? And I think that that's really where you get into some dangerous waters. But Los Angeles really has not been in that position. Now, the Brian Burns thing, if they were the team that ended up doing something like that, 2 first round picks for an edge rusher, okay, I'd probably push back on that one a little bit. But like the move to go get Stafford and what they did with Jalen Ramsey and all that kinds of stuff, I mean, you're investing in the right guys at the right time. So even though they haven't had first round picks and they've been a boring team to mock draft for, I can't hate what they're doing because it's had results.
Yeah, I've been covering them for several years now, and the draft season is a little bit different when you don't have a first round pick. A little bit,
right.
A little bit boring, but they have a first round pick this time around. They're picking number 19 in the first round.
For now,
yeah, we'll see what happens. But looking at what they've done through free agency, investing in the offensive line, securing Demarcus Robinson, investing on the offense. And in the secondary, adding a couple pieces back there. Biggest name, Tre'Davious White, absolutely. Darius Williams is another piece back there. But glaring holes left by Aaron Donald and edge rusher as well, kind of the top 2 spots that they need to add at. Is there a player in the first round at 19, edge rusher, defensive line, that can fall to them, but is also going to be a needle mover on the defense where they can get some pass rush that they weren't getting last season?
100%. And truly, and I think that they got 2 young guys last year who I love that they were able to get the experience that they were, Kobe Turner and Byron Young. Those were guys that I love to see what the Rams were able to get out of their young guys. You go to the offensive side of the ball as well. You don't even have to mention Puka Nacua. You throw Steve Avila in there as well, who I think is going to be a really versatile piece for them. So just overall, what they were able to do with the youth movement last year, I was very encouraged with. And certainly, I think that it feels like it is most likely that they are going to go back to the defensive line. As you mentioned there, I look at a guy like Latu from UCLA, which we have a joke on my podcast, the NFL Stock Exchange. Latu coming from UCLA, Los Angeles Rams, low moving costs, right? To get the guy to move his stuff from his dorm or his apartment into another apartment, somewhere else in LA, a little closer to the facility, low moving costs if you draft the guy. So you're saving the franchise a little bit of money. But look, I mean, he's been the best pass rusher in college football over the last 2 years, over 23% pass rush win percentage. Sure, he's not quite the athlete that a Jared Verse or a Dallas Turner are, which perhaps those guys make it to 19. I think it's much less likely for them. But just the overall production, you cannot deny from what Latu's been able to do over the last 2 years. So he's somebody who, if he's on the board at 19, I have often mocked him to the Rams there at that spot. Interior defensive line, it's kind of all over the place, right? Because I love Johnny Newton from Illinois. I think that he's a top 10 player in this class. I think he should be picked somewhere in the top 12. I think he's that good. Doesn't feel like the NFL is as hot on him as I am. And so I wonder, okay, does he get to 19? Is he you never want to say Aaron Donald replacement, but is he the guy who's going to be the next man up on the interior at that 3 technique spot? Because I think he's done a great job over the last 2 years at Illinois, showcasing that he is a future pro. I think the same can be said with Byron Murphy II from Texas, who this past year played very, very well, both in run defense and pass rushing. Really good athlete, good strength on him as well. Shoot. Some of the best praise that I could have for Byron Murphy II is Texas in an odd front had 380-pound Tavondre Sweat playing as the defensive end in a 3-4 setup. And they had Byron Murphy playing at the nose because they had faith that this guy could hold up in the middle against centers, against guards, against double teams, and all that kinds of stuff. So that's some of the best praise that I could get, that you're kicking a 380-pound guy out the defensive end because you have that luxury to be able to do so. But those are the 3 guys when I think about most common mock draft selections for the Rams at 19. It comes down to Johnny Newton from Illinois, Byron Murphy, the second from Texas, those two interior defensive linemen, and then Latu is the edge rusher from UCLA.
Yeah, we've love all those guys, talked about it a lot. Latu is kind of like our like dream. Anytime we can keep an LA guy in LA, like that's great for us, and we love that for coverage and obviously the type of player he is too. I love you mentioned Newton because I agree. I feel like he's not getting the same kind of love around other circles that maybe deserved and would be a great fit. So my next question for you though, and this kind of probably put you on the spot a little bit. I know the Rams aren't your like main team of coverage, so apologize if it puts you on the spot. But we always joke, Les Snead is the guy that if there's a glaring hole, he's going to do the opposite. So the need right now is edge and tackle. Like all three guys you listed would be home run picks, but knowing Les Snead is going to pick like offensive tackle or a receiver randomly in the first. So thinking that way, who are maybe some names that if the Rams stay put at 19 and they don't go on the defensive front, they're like, okay, you know what? I could see these guys at least filling some fun spots for the Rams next year.
Man, that's a great question. And I love the question because it forces you to go a little outside the box, right? I mean, like we think, oh, this team has a major need. They have to draft this in the first round. But if we're being honest, when we have draft conversations long enough, we get to the fact that, okay, well, the point of the draft is to just pick the best player available, right? I mean, it's you want your franchise and your roster to be in a good place to where you have that kind of flexibility. So to me, it's a great exercise. And I don't think that one that we do enough. Yeah, offensive tackle, I guess, you could take a swing at the offensive tackles at 19 if somebody's there that you absolutely love, J.C. Latham from Alabama, Talise Fuanga from Oregon State. Like if one of those guys are there, I guess that kind of could make sense. I think the somewhat easy answer would be like Brock Bowers is the ultimate wild card, right? I mean, like if you just think that he is this total chess piece type of an offensive player, let's say Brock Bowers doesn't get picked in the top 10. He's fallen a little bit farther down mocks. Let's look at a scenario where, okay, because Los Angeles has a second round pick, but then they have 2 third round picks because they've got that one comp pick. And then they've got a lot of picks outside of that, like you guys are talking about. Look at the Denver Broncos, right? Let's say Denver's sitting there at number 12 and they miss out on a quarterback. Right. Let's say the top 4 are gone. They don't love Michael Penix. They don't love Bo Nix. They're not going to take 1 to 12. Well, Denver then all of a sudden is like, okay, we need to trade back. We need to get more picks. Maybe you can bump up from 19 to 12 if you're the Rams and Brock Bowers is still on the board. You're given 19 and maybe, I don't know what it would take. Maybe some of those, a couple of day 3 picks. Maybe it's that 99 pick at the back end of the third round. You jump up 7 spots and the ultimate wild card is you go get a guy like Brock Bowers. So I think that is where my mind goes to of if the Rams weren't going to hone in on defensive line, what could they possibly go for? That's where my mind goes.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I think Brock Bowers on this offense would be electric. That kind of gets me excited there. So, jumping to the, second, third round idea, going back to the defensive side, they're at 54 and then 99 as well. Another third round pick that's escaping my
83. I got it up right here. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Defensive linemen in those regions that we should be looking out for.
Yeah. So, I mean, day 2 is always kind of a wild card, right? Because I think everybody can recognize talent for the most part in the first round, right? A lot of these teams have every board is different, right? Because some guys, okay, you look at a corner, okay, is he more of a man coverage guy? Is he an off coverage type of a player? When you look at pass rushers, is this guy a hand in the dirt 4-3 defensive end? Is he an outside linebacker? So teams' boards differ, but generally, I think the talent at the top is pretty close to consensus. Second round is where you really start to get these teams infusing their personal scouting flavor into what their big boards are going to be like. And so this one always just kind of depends what kind of a guy that you want to go for. So again, there's a lot of different shapes and sizes players where I'll start at like 52. If they're in a situation at number 52, if they would love a quick penetrating 3 technique defensive tackle, Braden Fisk from Florida State can make it to them at number 52. I think that would make sense. If they don't get a defensive tackle there, if you're waiting a little bit towards pick, 83 and 99, then you're looking at, okay, maybe a Brandon Dorless from Oregon. He's sort of an interior guy, but he could be a defensive end. I think maybe the same for Ruka Rororo from Clemson. Maybe they would covet that sort of versatility in there. If they want to get more towards the power part of the interior trenches, maybe a Chris Jenkins Jr. from Michigan. You probably have to take him at 52. He probably is not going to be there by the time that you get to 83. So you would have to take him at that spot. Edge rusher, I think, has a lot more creativity, right? Where is Marshawn Nealon going to go? The edge rusher from Western Michigan, bigger body, 270 pounds. I guess same story for Braylon Trice, right? So many pressures for Braylon Trice at Washington over the last couple of years. He's not a sack master. His finesse game sometimes leaves some to be desired, but man, he will line up in a wide 9 alignment. He will go straight through your chest of the quarterback, and I think he had a lot of pressures because of it. But then you got guys you can take a chance on a little bit later. Austin Booker, I think, from Kansas, somebody that's very moldable, hasn't played a ton of football as a starter, but very moldable. You like the athleticism, you like the build. I like Gabriel Murphy, UCLA guy, gets to stay at home. I think that would be a good spot for him. Xavier Thomas, the edge rusher from Clemson. So there's a ton of different players for them. There's a lot of names to know, but it really just kind of depends on what they prioritize. Are they going to streamline a certain type of pass rusher? Are they going to open it up to more versatility? Because that will sort of be able to hone down all those names that I mentioned and some more that I didn't even mention there. But when I think of LA and some players that they could use, those are the first couple of names that come to my mind.
Love it. Skinny T's been up in the stock of Austin Booker out of Kansas. So love
there you
to
go.
him up.
There you go.
I'm a new convert to Xavier Thomas as well.
Dude, Xavier, man, he's got good tape, man. And yeah. I think the puzzling part is, I think he was the number 3 overall recruit in the 2018 recruiting class. And here he is, it's 2024 and he's not in the league yet. I think he wanted to leave after 2021, but felt like he could get more backfield production. It's a foot injury, derails 2022. So he wasn't going to leave then. And I got to watch Xavier Thomas at the Shrine Bowl in person. And there were a couple of players at the Shrine Bowl that you just went, okay, you're better than everybody else here. Like, you're a future pro. And I felt like Xavier Thomas was one of those players.
Yeah, 100%. So I think he looked great in horns. All right, let me ask you this. Call it buzz, call it rumors, whatever you want. But there is some chatter about the Rams surprising even more than we talked last question and going quarterback maybe at 19, or for sure. I think we've talked a lot. I think at one point with one of their 11 picks, they just signed Jimmy G to a 1-year deal. They have Stetson Bennett from last year, but really don't know what his, kind of outside the field is really looking like moving forward. He is supposed to rejoin the team here this offseason, but there's a lot of question marks there. So, there's been chatter like, do they go Bo Nix or Michael Penix at 19? Not saying we would love that, but that's been talked about. Your thoughts on kind of the Rams and the QB position?
This is my favorite Bo Nix landing spot. And I like Bo Nix a lot, man. I mean, going into this season, when we went through our summer scouting exercises, Bo Nix was QB3 for me, and he was close to Drake May. Now, obviously, Jaden Daniels having the year that he had and McCarthy really improving the way that he has bumped those guys up, but I don't think any less of Bo Nix. Like, I genuinely believe that Bo Nix could be a good NFL starter one day, and you'll see what happens from there. I think that sometimes people just say like, "Oh, this guy will be he'll be multiple All-Pro, he'll lead you to Super Bowls," and it's like, okay, there's a lot that has to happen from them being college players, even very talented college players, to getting to that side. So I often just like to say, hey, I could see this guy as a full-time starter, and then you see how they evolve there once they get into that role in the NFL. And I believe that for Bo Nix. I'd love for him to sit behind Matthew Stafford. I would love for him to get to work with Sean McVay in that offense. Again, I don't think that it happens at 19, but again, if you're in a situation where you got a lot of ammo behind you, if you're sitting there at 52 and I don't know, sometime in the 30s, I'm just picking a random number, 37, 38, something like that, you have the chance to trade up and maybe go get him. I think that to me would make sense for them because, the Jimmy G signing doesn't really move the needle for me. I would absolutely take Bo Nix over Stetson Bennett in a heartbeat when it comes to being the backup of this team and being the developmental quarterback. We don't know how much longer Matthew Stafford's going to do this. And so getting Nix in this year, I would love it. I can't seem to make it happen because I don't think that Bo Nix lasts until pick 52. So I don't really want to pick him at 19 for the Rams. But regardless of kind of how we get there, that is my favorite landing spot for Knicks. It is him being in Los Angeles. And by the way, the phrase, yeah, he'd look good in horns. I've never heard that before. And that is an elite saying for talking about a player going to a certain team. So I absolutely love that.
There we go. Love that. Good stuff.
Need to get on some Rams Twitter more often.
I do. I feel like I've got a handful of Los Angeles Rams people that I'll go back and forth with every now and then. But I feel like I need to expand the database, the friendship, if you will.
Well, there you go. You got us now. So
I've been high on Spencer Rattler, just an arm strength guy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think him at 83, at 54, is that too much of a reach? Is that too crazy?
So I don't know if you'll get him at 83. Like I really don't. Like he's another guy who I think there's a lot of teams that would love to pick Spencer Rattler in the third round. And you guys know how it goes. If there's a lot of teams that want a quarterback at a certain spot, guess what? They're going earlier because somebody is going to up the price and up the desire, and they're going to go get him a little bit earlier. So I wonder if Rattler ends up sneaking into like back end part of the second round at that point. So I think that he also would be a great fit. Man, Spencer, it just like anything in life, truly, it's hard to overcome first impressions. Like that is what people remember about you the most. And for as much as I feel like people, now I'm getting philosophical, but like, people don't necessarily want to go the extra mile to learn the details or follow up or things like that. Sometimes they'll see something or a player or whatever, and they'll just see a glimpse of them the first time, whatever it is. And they go, nope, that's who that player is to me always. The Oklahoma version of Spencer Rattler is not the same version of Spencer Rattler that is coming into the NFL right now. Mm-hmm. He was a gunslinger, risky, sort of like a hothead quarterback when he was in the Lincoln Riley system at Oklahoma. He goes to South Carolina, and what he has become, the quarterback that he has become in that program under Shane Beamer and that offense, and just the personal growth that he has had, you could see it on the field, man. That maturity level is so much higher, and I can tell that it's from a personal side of things because I see it so easily bleed over into all the facets of his game. Guys, his pocket presence is so fantastic this past season compared to what it was at Oklahoma when it really did not exist at all. And he was pressured on almost 40% of his dropbacks. Like if there was any quarterback in the country that had a reason to throw their offensive line under the bus or blame the offense for him not being able to have the stats that he had, it was probably Spencer in South Carolina. And yet he was continually, there's plenty of clips of him, going to the sideline, pumping up his offensive line, like he was just trying to be a leader as best as he could. And I think the NFL has really taken note of that because it feels like throughout this whole process, Jim Nagy was the first to kind of like talk about this as we were getting closer to the Senior Bowl. He was like, look, the NFL is a lot higher on Spencer Rattler than it seems like the media and the fans are. I'm just telling you guys that is a little bit of a relay here. And, sometimes that could be, Jim pumping up his guys at the Senior Bowl, but I really do think that there was a lot of truth to that. And I think third round to me is the floor for Rattler, but I'm starting to think that maybe back end of the second round is possible for him too.
Wow. Well, we found our clip that we're going to cut up because I think Rams fans will be excited about the potential of him. I know I said 20 minutes, but I'll make this quick. I got two quick ones for you, Trevor.
Go ahead. No, it's all good.
So first, I know this is a Rams podcast, but just quickly, when looking at the other LA guys, USC and UCLA, and obviously we talked about one with Latu and who could potentially be Rams. But when you look at Brendan Rice and Taj Washington, who I love Taj Washington, I think he's going to be a great NFL player. Maybe he's not getting as much hype. Marshawn Lloyd, you looked at the Murphy twins, as you mentioned, just talk a little bit about maybe some of these other USC and UCLA products that are going to be mid-round guys, but have a lot of potential and upside for the league.
Yeah, I like Gabriel Murphy. I really do. I know that him and his twin brother Grayson, they're very similar, obviously twins. So they're built the same, got the same measurables. It was funny. Again, I saw those guys at the Shrine Bowl and their beards were exactly the same. Like their hair was grown out exactly the same. It's like, y'all schedule your beard trimmings and your haircuts too. And it really, they just do like everything together. And I like Gabriel's game a little bit more than Grayson's. Grayson's a little bit more of a, I'm going to kind of run through you type of a player. He uses more strength. He focuses on more of a bull rush and a power profile to his pass rushing. Gabriel's got a little bit quicker of hands. He focuses on the two-handed swipe. staying off of offensive tackles, really disengaging those blocks. And I think that's a little bit more translatable to the next level. So I think that Gabriel's probably, I like him in the third round. I really do. I think Grayson's probably like early day 3, 4th, 5th round, something like that. Brendan Rice is somebody who, his tape, I'm not going to lie, it's a little confusing to me just because he's so fundamentally sound, but there are times when, okay, like I'll watch you separate really well, and then I go to the Senior Bowl and he doesn't separate really well, but he was also like a contested catch monster at the Senior Bowl. So now it's like, okay, I have these kind of 2 different versions of you, the ones I saw at USC versus the one that I saw at the Shrine or at the Senior Bowl. But I think he's a good receiver, a well-rounded receiver. Washington's somebody that I got to watch again in person at the Shrine Bowl. Him and Malik Washington from Virginia were 2 of just the most uncoverable receivers that were at that event every single day of practice. Those guys were putting on a highlight film. I was had a clip to tweet of them every single day because they were either winning a one-on-one or gaining separation in the red zone or something like that. So I like all those guys. Marshawn Lloyd, big time playmaker, man. And this is somebody who was a 4-star recruit, borderline 5-star recruit. I can't remember if one of the outlets ended up having him a 5-star recruit. But when he went to South Carolina, they love this dude. And ends up tearing his ACL early. And so, the second year, okay, it's all about just rehabbing. Third year, okay, like it's his first time year as a starter, but things have obviously kind of changed for him. Goes over to USC, and I think USC was giving him a little bit more freedom to do what he wanted to do. Now, you could make the case of whether or not that was the best long-term move for him, because there are times when Marshawn Lloyd, who is a phenomenal athlete, will just try to do the Reggie Bush switch fields kind of a thing. And it's like, okay, that's not going to work in the pros, but it felt like he did have a lot more freedom and open spaces playing in the Pac-12 and playing with USC. So you were able to see kind of that getaway speed a little bit more from him this past year. So I think that that's what he boasts very, very highly. The last guy, and just a guy that, man, I want to like so bad, is Kalen Bullock from USC, right? I mean, because this is a down safety class. You're kind of searching for who's really going to stand out in this group. And I like Tyler Nubin from Minnesota the best. He's my top safety in this class. But outside of, and Jaden Hicks, I think from Washington State is also fantastic. I think he'll be either safety 2 or safety 3 for me. But Bullock's the ultimate wild card, because the best of Kalen Bullock is all pro at the NFL level. Defense changing, right? Single high ability, center field ability. You can play cover 1. You can play cover 3. Like, he's just the guy who has the range, has the ball skills, have everything, but he just doesn't have the physical profile. He's lighter in the weight, doesn't love tackling, he just doesn't have the density to come up and really hit. And when you are a safety, taking that word literally, you are the safety valve. You are the last line of defense. You have to be able to tackle. And if I can't rely on you for tackling, yes, the interceptions and the forced incompletions and the range, I mean, it's fantastic. It's got value. But man, when we need you to come up and make a play and make a tackle, sometimes he is just lacking in that area. So he is just the roller coaster that I keep getting on the ride, man. I can't quit it. I keep getting on the ride. I keep getting back in line. But he's somebody who, at his best, is somebody you could build the back end of a defense around. But at his worst, he's somebody that's going to be tough to be reliable. So I'm fascinated to see how his NFL career just plays out.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way with Bullock. I've been at every SC game for the last 3 years covering them, and I liken him in terms of size and a little bit of his ability to like Justin Simmons when he was coming out of Boston College as like a 3rd round pick. And what's hard with Bullock, as you said, is that kind of inconsistency. And it's like, how much of that is just the horrendous defensive coaching that was at USC, and how much of that is just the player profile and consistency. So if he can like break the mold of what was happening on the back end on the coaching staff, I think he has really high upside. So it's a good segue to my last question. So this time of year, I love it. The hashtag on Twitter is my guy. Everyone has kind of their guy. Who is your guy in this draft class?
I got a lot. I mean, this is like picking between my kids. As you can tell, like how passionately I talked about Bo Nix. I think that Bo Nix at this point is one of my guys. But I would say that the among the many, it feels like the guy that I'm just going to cape for the most is Mike Sanderstill from Michigan. And I know I'm not like totally alone. It's impossible to watch his tape and not love him. But like, I got him as a top 40 player, man. I mean, he might end up being like a top 30 player for me. The draft is all about just getting good football players in there. And this is a former receiver who turned into a defensive back, and he's got the ball skills. He's got the short area quickness. He'll come up and hit you with everything that he's got. He'll play strong safety. He'll play in the box. He'll play as a nickel coverage defender against all sorts of different assignments. It's just so hard for me to watch him and not absolutely love what I see. I felt similarly. Now, I don't have them graded as high because they're different players, but I felt similarly with Devon Witherspoon last year. There was a lot of debate. Hey, who's CB1? Is it Devon Witherspoon or is it Christian Gonzalez? And it felt like there was I used the word war lightly, a battle, whatever, on Twitter between who was CB1 for these two different camps and these two different supporting units. I love Christian Gonzalez. He was also I think a top 10 player for me. But Devon Witherspoon was like 5 overall for me. I love the mentality, the ferociousness, the fiery competitor that he was. And Sandra Still from Michigan is that. He's not quite the coverage player and the athlete that Witherspoon is, but he is that same competitor. Give me those guys every time. I'm such a sucker for a good defensive back who's got that kind of mentality. So I would say of all the guys in the draft, I've got a lot of guys that I love, but Sandra Still is somebody who I will pound the table for if I were any team.
Love it. Well, and obviously you nailed it with Witherspoon, and Rams fans get to see him twice a year, and that's never fun with how good he is. So, well, Trevor Sikkema, thank you so much for the time. Lead draft analyst for PFF, co-host of the NFL Stocks Exchange podcast with Connor Rogers. We certainly appreciate your expertise, your time, your analysis, and bringing that luscious locks and great beard on the show with us. So thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it, guys. Anytime, truly.